To explain how to cut and sew the kimono, I will do it in the small scale pattern. So first you get a piece of fabric. The length of the fabric is twice the length of the kimono you want. So for example, from here to here is 60 centimeter is the length. I need 1.2 meter, and then I fold them in half like that. Next thing you need to do is you need to draw the central line of the piece of fabric you have. This is the central line. Another thing you need to do next is to wrap the measuring tape all the way around your wrist or arm and see how wide you want for the sleeve. For example, I want my sleeve to be 20 centimeter wide. I take 20 centimeter from the top. So from here is 20 centimeter. And then I draw the line 20 centimeter apart from the double fold like that. Next thing, I need to decide how wide I want my chest. This the kimono, how big to be. For example, my chest is 80 centimeter and I want it to be oversized. I do it 100 centimeter for the side of the kimono. So the front gonna be 50 and the back gonna be 50. And because we cut the front and the back at the same time, so we cut 25 centimeter from the central line here and 25 centimeter from the central line here. 25 and 25, and you draw it straight out. So this is the shape of the kimono you have. But when you cut, you will cut it slightly curve a little bit around the body and the sleeve like that. So you sew it easier, and it's not turned all the sudden make a square angle. You make it a little bit curvy and meeting like that. So this is imagine the kimono you have. The neck, how to cut, you will decide how much you want to open around the neck here, the neck area here. Normally it's 7 centimeter from the central line. 7. You take 7 centimeter from the central line here. 7 centimeter. This part 7. And then you decide the point where you want the two parts to meet. And then you slightly draw angle like this. Like this. Connect them. And when you cut, you only cut on the front piece of the kimono. And cut out, and this part you trim, cut it straight like that. Of course, this neck you should cut it more curvy. For example, I open the kimono pattern here. You will see this one, if you cut a little bit straight like this, it's gonna be like very pointy angle, which will be harder to sew when you sew on the pointy angle. So this part, you're gonna draw it a little bit curvy down, like by 3 or 5 centimeter from here, and make it curvy. And then cut it to make it more curvy, less pointy, so easier to sew. Like that. And then you're gonna watch the next video for how to sew the sleeve. How to sew the strap and the sleeve here together. Next step is sew this part 1 centimeter all the way around for the side and the sleeve, and then make a strap, and then sew the strap to the body. Everyone, today I'm gonna show you how to cut the kimono. So I got this fabric from one of my friends. And the fabric is from India. I fold them in half like this. Depend on how long I want the kimono. So for example, now I'm making the kimono only 60 centimeter length. So I'm gonna need double the length of the fabric. So I need 1.2 meter length for the fabric. So if you make the kimono longer, you need longer piece of fabric and fold them in a half like this. So now next thing I need to do is I draw the central line of the kimono here. I have a central line, which is the middle of the kimono, and I draw it like that. And then I decide how wide I want it around my sleeve. For example, I can grab the measuring tape around my sleeve and decide how wide I want for the sleeve. I don't want it to be so big, so I wrap it around like this. Maybe I want it 38 centimeter all the way around. So half of that gonna be 19. So from this angle, I measure down 19 centimeter. Okay. And then I can add 1 centimeter for the seam allowance. So I take 20 centimeter. Already 21 here, 20 centimeter only like that. And from here 20 centimeter, 20 centimeter. So I draw a line. And from this side also, I draw 20 centimeter only. So now you need your chest measurement and how wide you want the kimono. So you have a thing like this, it's a sleeve here, and then straight down for the chest. So depend on how wide your leg, your chest, and the area of the kimono. For example, is you use it to wear around other clothes, right? So it needs to be a little bit more movement for the normal shirt. So for example, my chest is 80. I'm gonna make the wide of the kimono even 100 or 90 something, because I wear it out other dress anyway. So let's take 100 centimeter total for the chest. So that means the front is gonna be 50 and the back 50 also. So I cut 25 and 25, total 50 here. So around here and here. And I draw straight line down, straight line down. And you can cut like this. And you already have the kimono. But normally at the turn here, you draw it a little bit curvy. So it's not to be like so hard to sew, or like when you wear it, it will be more nice around the sleeve area. So when you cut like this and like this. Around the neck area. So this is the central line, and you can decide where you want the sleeve, the neck to open. Normally 7 centimeter from the central line here. You mark this point 7 and here 7, and then you can slowly connect to the end here. Maybe I choose this point to be the meeting point. So I slowly make a curve like that. Make a turn like that. Yeah. Copy for both sides. And when I cut, I will cut like this. I cut only one layer on the top. The top layer I cut only, and the second I cut like that also. And then I cut this one out. And the sleeve here, I'm gonna cut like this. Little bit curvy and to the sleeve part. And the other area also, same. So you see the kimono is like that. I'm gonna sew this and the sleeve part together, the side part. And I'm gonna cut a strap to sew the neck curve together. And next thing I need to do, I need to cut the strap for the neck because I don't have a long enough piece, so I'm gonna cut and connecting all the pieces together. And I keep connecting, keep doing, and then I sew them together. Make it a long piece for the strap. So next thing I need to do, I will sew the sleeve curve here together. 1 centimeter all the way around until the end, and the other side also. Okay, now I sew the sleeve and the side curve together. You sew and then you use the zigzag machine. This is where the turn to the side, the sleeve end. You connect the strap for the strap together because they're not long enough, so you connect them all the side here together until you get the length you need for the body. This is 2 straps, connect more until you get the length you want. And after you sew the sleeve together, this one together, you already have the kimono like that. Now next thing is the neck here. The neck area here, if you want to be more easier to sew, instead of leaving the straight line like this, you can trim it a little bit more curvy. So the turn is not all a sudden turning like the square angle. So you can cut it a little bit curvy in this part, a little bit lower, curvy, lower like that. So the turn here is more like turn curve, and when you sew the strap together, it will be easier. We already have the strap sewing together like this to make a long piece. So you will fold them in half like this and start sewing with the neck. You will start sew from the middle of the neck, which is here, from the outside. Okay, this is the right side. So we start sewing the strap from the middle, matching the middle. So I'm gonna mark the middle of the strap around here, this point, and I start sewing with the middle of the neck, 1 centimeter all the way around. I fold the strap like that, and this is the middle. I sew 1 centimeter all the way around. So that is the reason why I trim it to be more curvy around the turn, so it's easier to sew all the way around. Here is a turn. I pull it a little bit slowly and put it, make it sit nicely around the turn. And then I go 100% all the way down. And I do similar for the other half. I sew it until the end. And at the end here, because later at the hem I'm gonna sew it up like this. I fold up like this together. So I know how much I need for the strap. I only need it until here. So I'm gonna start sewing from here, and I will mark this point. So later I only need this much. I start sewing from here. And now at this part, I trim the unnecessary part. I flip this one over like this, and I start to sew like this. And now I turn this one inside out again. So I know I only need this much. And this is the part I'm gonna sew with this pattern. And this part later, because this is needed to fold inside for the hem anyway, like that. So I fold the hem also. And then I start to sew two parts together. And later I will use the overlock machine to overlock all the part here. So I will continue to sew the other side. I will still go from the middle, but then in this time the strap gonna be under to make sure they're matching nicely. And I'm gonna do similar thing. Just be extra careful around the turn because it's harder than usual. Don't be afraid to go a little bit closer to the bottom. And you sew 100% to the end. Slide the foot up to observe if you need, and sew 100% to the end. And you sew until the end. And remember the hem here gonna be folding up like this. The hem gonna be folding up like this. So we need, this is how much we need for the strap. And we cut the extra out, similar. We will sew them from the inside. This one sew from the inside. So you will flip it over. Imagine at the end it will look like this, right? So you have to flip it over and sew from the inside. This part. And this is how much you need for the strap. You trim the extra S out. Turn it inside out over to have the strap sit nicely like this, and then you place it on the body and fold the hem up of the body, the hem like that, up, matching. This is fold inside one more time. Because we don't overlock it, we don't do the zigzag, so we fold it twice, and then you sew like normal, straight. And you use the overlock machine to lock the S here you already sew, and finally you close the hem here together. sew all the way 100%, and you have the final kimono. When you sew the hem together, actually you think just fold it twice like this, but actually it's not simple like that. You have to fold the fabric naturally. So for example, this one facing like that, instead of you have to hold it like that and then fold them like this, one and then two, and then pull them from the long distance and sew. If not, it's easy to twist the fabric. The fabric got twisted and moving around, easy. So at the end, the meeting point here is not matching. So for example, I fold like that, like that. So at the end here, I know it's matching, and then I pull them from long distance, and I settle them down. The other fabric will be more easier than I sew them, and then I easy to twist it, and then this part not matching anymore. And then at the end here, I fold them and settle them down from long distance like that. Next thing I need to do, maybe it will be nicer to settle down the seam at the strap here. Maybe I sew one line on top to fix them together. From the outline here, I settle them down the seam and sew on this line straight all the way 100%. And then you have the piece of kimono like this. From the outside, the seam, to the inside, the sleeve. Of course, you don't need this if your fabric don't have. This is a design, and then the sleeve attached to the body. The hem close up.